Age of quarantine. I'm your host at Chris Enriquez drums. I play in the band Spotlights at Spotlights Music and Total Meltdown NYHC. I also work at Revolver Magazine, Hard Times, and Inked Magazine. So now you know who I am. And I started this show a couple months ago, and my good friends at St. Vitus Bar allowed me to take my show and bring it to their platform. So thank you to them. Thank you to everyone that has supported St. Vitus this whole time during this difficult pandemic. And during also this crazy time that is happening in the world with a lot of social unrest. I hope you're all out there being safe and being smart and taking care of yourselves. Now, I have a great guest on here. I grew up in the New York hardcore scene. I started in Long Island and eventually made my way to the city, lived in the East Village, Lower East Side, hung out at CBGB's, and guess what? Agnostic Front. They're the band that started it all. Started all certainly here in New York. I mean, they had Bad Brains, you had Cro-Mags, you had a lot of bands, but Agnostic Front really pioneered it and inspired the whole movement to kind of become what it was. You wouldn't have your Sick Dolls, your Gorilla Biscuits, or today's, your Judges, your, you name it, Madball. There he is. Agnostic Front just joined. So let's get Agnostic Front on the screen. Let's get Roger. Cannot wait to talk to him. Thanks for joining us, everybody. And if you have questions, hey Roger.
Hey, how are you, man?
I'm great. It's so good to see you. Happy belated birthday.
Hey, thank you, man. Thank you.
Yeah. So I know that it was tough to schedule, so I can't thank you enough for making time. Have you been managing to get through the pandemic?
Oh, man, just exactly it. Just managing to get through. Yeah, I think everybody's managing to get through somehow, some way, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah.
What a mess.
Yeah, and I know that it was a real tough thing with the AF Sick of It All tour, which is postponed. We will hopefully expect that in 2021, I'm sure, to come back.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Did you manage to do anything special for your birthday during the pandemic?
Not really. We stayed home, you know. My wife and my son both have what do you call those? They both have immune system diseases, you know, and so really they can't really go anywhere, you know. So I really worry. So I'm the only one that pretty much leaves the house because I have to. But everything's, we just got to be careful for my son and my wife. That's all.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, with so much crazy stuff happening in the world today, the reason we started this show was so we could talk to our favorite musicians. And as you know, we are a New York City venue. We're all representing New York, and we have a good following around the world. We got people watching all over the world right now. So we're going to take some questions from them eventually. But I would like to, talk about the old days. I know you get a lot of that, but we're going to try to keep it fresh and not ask you all the same questions, if that's cool.
I like the old days. I like the old days better than the new days.
Yeah, especially now.
I'm okay talking old days for sure.
Awesome. So Roger, many of your experiences were documented in your book, My Riot, and obviously the Godfathers of Hardcore and Showtime. I know you migrated here from Cuba. When was that exactly?
1968.
1968, and you came to New York City?
Yeah, well, not directly New York City. We had to go to, I think I spoke about it in my book anyway. We had to stop in Florida, stay like in some kind of a little tiny camp till they processed us, and then we went straight to New York City, to Queens. We flew into JFK. But that's from Florida to JFK, Cuba, Florida, JFK.
Wow. And when you came to New York, did you already speak English, or did you learn how to speak English in New York?
Man, I don't know. Well, I had to learn how to speak English in America. And obviously, Spanish was my first language, English being my second. So it was tough, and then my mom was young to begin with, and I'm, and I'm just a kid, and I have to teach my brothers and sisters too, because my mom doesn't know how to speak English. She's also, her first language is Spanish. So it was definitely a struggle. I don't think English. I could speak English. Obviously, we're doing this right now, but I still get confused with some stuff, with English words and stuff like that. But I think I did pretty good considering I had to do all this shit on my own.
Right, of course.
Yeah, I also tell you, like I mentioned in my book, what was really interesting and it was funny because it hit me as I was writing. There's so many things hit me as I was writing the book that was just incredible. Like, wow, you start putting things together. Is when we came from when I came from Cuba to America back then, they didn't know what to do with anybody that didn't speak English or just wasn't up to the times in school. So they put us all in like in classes with kids that were special ed, you know what I mean? Just because I didn't speak English, that's the only reason why. And I remember having this Middle Eastern kid came and he read the other way, and I thought it was the coolest thing in the world. And he was in my class too, and just because they didn't know what to do with us.
Right.
Which was amazing. So we had to progress with the special ed classes that I had to take for like 2 or 3 years, and then to pick myself up and then teach my brothers and sisters, you know.
Unbelievable. What part of Queens were you in?
No, we flew to Queens, and then met my uncle. I don't know the part. I don't remember it was a tall building. But we ended up then staying for the rest of it. We went to Jersey. We stayed in Passaic, New Jersey, and then Paterson, New Jersey. Freddie was born in Paterson, New Jersey.
Right.
And then back to New York eventually.
Unbelievable. It's one of the reasons why Agnostic Front meant a lot to me is I grew up a little outside of Queens, so I'm born and raised in New York. And when I got into hardcore, it was in the mid '90s. You had broken up at that point, so when you got back together, it was when Something's Gotta Give. That was around the time I got into hardcore. But I just thought that your story, being a minority, I could relate to, and like going into the city. And just the hardcore scene is very welcoming. It was a nice place to fit in because wasn't accepted in other places.
I totally agree with you. Even through my own journey from coming as a refugee, coming to America, obviously we stayed in all mostly Spanish oriented places. We lived amongst, because it was easier for my mom to speak and for us to get along. Within the Latin community. You know what I mean? Like for example, your Lower East Side or in your Latin communities and wherever these areas exist, we all kind of come together, But even with all that, nothing really felt at home till I got till punk. I like to say till hardcore got into me, because when it got into me, it was like a crazy ass virus like we're experiencing today. But yeah. That was really when everything really came together really nicely for me. I met a lot of people that felt were like me, because I was very reserved. A lot of it had to do with not knowing how to speak English well. And secondly, moving around a lot because we didn't have any money. We were pretty much living in poverty. We kept moving just because we couldn't pay rent. So we had to move. And I never really had a chance to make friends. I would go to school. I would go to two different schools a year, possibly 3. So it was a crazy upbringing like that, just because that's the way it was, and what's really crazy is when you're living it, you don't even know. Like, I went back and visited some of the places I lived in. I'm like, damn, this is straight up like bad ghetto, But when you're a kid, it's home. It doesn't seem different or nothing, It's just. But when you go back, you're like, whoa, one of my mom kept moving and moving and moving. It was crazy,
That's crazy.
But hardcore was really something special for us, man.
That's awesome. I'm going to give some shout outs to, you mentioned your book. I want to give a shout out to John Wiederhorn, because I actually work at Revolver Magazine, and he does a lot of stuff for us. And just going to take some comments from people real quick. We got people from Brazil watching. We got people from all over the world.
My jiu-jitsu shirt, Gracie Jiu-Jitsu.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
In Brazil, because I train. I'm about to do some stuff for my wife when we're done over here.
Oh, that's great. We have Vinny Jiu-Jitsu. He says, hi, Roger. I'm Brazilian. I'm a Brazilian fighter. And he just wanted to say he's from Rio de Janeiro, and New York hardcore rules.
Thank you, brother. Thank you.
We got Irish Townie. Roger, thank you for years of music. After going through the military and still having Agnostic Front music has helped him get through his life. And he's saying, what's up from Boston? And we got some people from Tampa. So thanks everybody for watching.
Thank you guys.
You got a good audience. Okay, so I like that in Godfathers of Hardcore. I tell people this a lot. You don't have to know Agnostic Front or even know what hardcore is to enjoy it, because it's a story about you guys just kind of being kind of misfits, and you being a minority and sort of finding your way in New York. And I like to talk about old New York a little bit because I'm from New York, and talk about surviving as a teenager. We'll get into punk and hardcore in a little bit, but what are some strange, odd jobs or ways that you had to get by or survive through your teenage years in old New York and through your 20s? If you can tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I mean, basically, you know, we lived as in my teenage years. I was obviously straight in hardcore, straight in the agnostic front. You know, like there's people. I meet people all over the world, and they got to go to like high school, college, all that stuff. I didn't. I quit, and I joined this band, and here I am still in that band. You know, but I wouldn't trade it for nothing. You know, that's my degree. But we lived like a commune type of style living. You know, we were like a real community. We were really close knit. We were really like watch each other's back. We lived in abandoned buildings. We lived in squats, and we took care of each other. We really like had this thing that I don't think could ever be reproduced again. You know what I mean? It was just a time and a place, you know. And besides that, the rents were affordable back then too, because I also had a 188 Norfolk Street, which is Apartment X, famous Apartment X. A lot of people know that from the past. At one point, I had it was my lease, and it was a basement apartment. We were paying like $180 or $190 down there.
Wow.
And even when I moved to Second Street, it was like $300. It was like no, the rents were nothing. It was really affordable, but you know, everything was kind of warehouse. You could I right before my daughter was born, I had my two dogs. I went into one of those warehouse apartments because that's what they used to do. What I say by warehouse is landlords used to, at one point when New York was about to flip gentrify, they were warehousing apartments. There would be apartment building like 30 apartments in it, but only 8 tenants, real tenants, and they were warehouses. They could sell the building for a lot of money because now you could up your rents. So that's how they gentrified everything. So wow. I went into dogs and stuff, and I lived in an apartment for about a year till even after my daughter was born, just to, you know, with my dogs, and it's just so I could have hot water. You know what I mean? And it was you know, back then a lot of stuff was drug infested, of course, but they, you know, even back the drug dealers and all that stuff back then, they didn't want no trouble. They were cool. They, you know, as long as you're not bringing any trouble or any noise back there, they're doing their thing. You stay out of their thing, and it was all kind of mutual like that. But we kind of learned how to live together. You know, at a point I was living in a van too. You know, but taking my showers at Vinny's house or drive to Kabula's house and take a shower or something like that.
I'm guessing you were already into punk and hardcore at this point before.
Yeah, my teenage years was all punk, hardcore, straight up, Lower East Side.
So maybe let's talk about punk and hardcore and then go back to the squats, because I have a lot of questions about your first squats, how you would find these places. But what were you into musically? What were you into before punk and hardcore?
That's a good one. What my mom and what my family listened to was straight up like salsa, merengue, cumbia, you know, Latin music, which eventually evolved to R&B, evolved into some disco. You know what I mean? And I didn't know rock. I didn't, you know, like I remember I went to a friend's house and he had AC/DC. I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. You know, I didn't know it. You know, then all of a sudden, you know, like I saw the Clash. You know, we live right behind the Capitol Theater in New Jersey, and then when they played, we were parking all the cars in the back. It was really crazy. We met them. I saw them. I thought that was pretty cool. And then little by little, my cousin got me into punk, and I thought it was cool. But I discovered rock afterwards. I'm one of those weird guys like discovered, like I walked out of the Who when I went to go see the Clash because I didn't even know who the Who was.
Wow.
You know what I mean? To this day, I regret that. I'm like, because I got into the Who afterwards.
That's so funny. And
really
stigma. Stigma was into that stuff before.
Yeah,
I know, because
like I didn't know like any of that stuff, or mostly all that was metal. That's why I have a disconnect still with it. That's why when I went to straight into punk and hardcore, I still prefer that. I don't know any of Ozzy Osbourne stuff. What's his band called again? Look, that's how crazy. Black Sabbath. That's how crazy I am.
Wow.
Like I know like Led Zeppelin and all these bands. They're cool, but they ain't as good as the Sex Pistols.
Yeah, right. That's so interesting. You got into punk rock first, which is so cool. And you said your cousin got you into punk rock?
Yeah.
And it's because you saw the Clash.
Yeah, pretty much. And he used to take me all into the city, see all the shows. And my cousin was he's a good guy, still alive, but he was supposed to die, something weird. And he never died. He's still alive. He has like one or something like that, one kidney and a half, and he's still like going. Like this guy never, and so because we thought he was gonna pass, his mom let him do anything, like yeah, go do. So we were going wild. He was getting me into all this crazy music, taking me to the city, to all these clubs, and that's how I got into it.
Unbelievable. And so, what were the? I'm sure you were going to the Max's Kansas City and all the early venues, obviously. But what were the first hardcore bands that you saw?
Well, to be truthfully, I only went to Max's Kansas City, if I can remember, if I can lay it down, maybe 2-3 times at most. I kind of missed that. I kind of came in the end when it was done. They were starting to do like hardcore. I saw the Stimulators there. And Bad Brains. I saw the Bad Brains there. I saw Beastie Boys there too. They may have played together, the Bad Brains and the Beastie Boys. I can't remember right now. I saw Stimulators. I said Stimulators. I saw another band. I think I saw Even Worse there.
Okay.
And then all the shows started getting shifted towards the A7 Club and towards the 2+2 Annex, which was part of the A7, the Mug Club, the Peppermint Lounge.
Right.
Right. And everything started kind of moving because Max's was closing. They would start to do like a hardcore night. I think it might have been a Thursday night, some odd night. But the A7 always had something going on. You would go to the Rat Cage Records, the old Rat Cage Records on Avenue A, and then you would see what's going on. But out of the bands that I saw at Max's, I would say for sure Beastie Boys, Bad Brains, Stimulators, Even Worse. I'm trying to think of anybody else I did get to see. I remember seeing Crowd when they played one of the Bond Street shows. The Bad Brains played one of those Bond Street shows too with the Clash. It was crazy, man. It was great times. So when John Watson was singing in Agnostic Front, was Agnostic Front already a band at that point when you saw all that stuff?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I saw Agnostic Front. I was playing with the Psychos. We had all the Psychos, and when I remember one of the earlier thing, I didn't see him when they played with the Necros. Unfortunately, that was their first show. I didn't see that show, but I saw the second show. It was Johnny Wace. He lived in this apartment, like what do you call it? Apartment complexes.
Yeah.
The projects. And I think it was his birthday or something like that. And he rented out the little hall in the bottom you rent out for parties or whatever you do in that. And he had a show. He did a show. It was great. It was a phenomenal show. And Agnostic Front played that. And Billy Psycho got his nose broken at that one. I remember that one too. I went with Billy. And that was a killer show. Like it was Watson, Vinny, Diego, and Robbie Creek Crash. And they would start a song. And the only one end up playing every song that will still end up playing every song was Vinny and Robbie Creek Crash. Because John Watson will start a line, throw the mic in the floor, get in the pit, and then Diego will follow. So there was never a song completed. It was very primitive, but very exciting, very cool to watch. Like there was never a song finished. But it was was like, oh, what's going on? It was crazy. And that whole show was phenomenal. It was a great show. And then they saw him a bunch of times at CB's right before I joined. you know, the rest is history.
So they existed for a bit before you were in.
Oh yeah, before I was in, I saw them with Watson singing, and I saw them with Keith did a thing right before, and that's an interesting story. Keith from Cause for Alarm. I saw him play a show. Watson wasn't there. I saw him with all three singers. Yeah, I did see. I saw him with Jimmy too.
Jimmy Gestapo sang for
no Virus. Jimmy from Virus.
Okay.
So, he sang right before I did.
What songs from that era made it onto United Blood and Victim in Pain? I know Power obviously was one of them.
Power was pre Agnostic from. Power was from Vinny's band to the Eliminators.
Wow. And did Vinny write those lyrics?
Yeah, all that stuff in United Blood minus two songs that I bought from the Cycles were already there, and I tweaked some stuff because it was I had the opportunity to tweak some stuff. I joined the band in April. In fact, in my book, I wrote that there was a Connecticut show was my first show, and I need to clear that up. Actually, the 2 weeks before that, I was my first show. We played Murphy's Law at the A7 Club because me and Jimmy were talking about it. That was my first show. So the Connecticut show was the second show, and then the third show was a monitor show. But there were songs already written. Lyrics are mostly there for the majority of it. Some stuff I kind of tweaked a little bit, but really my creativity with Agnostic Front, what I was doing was really Victim in Pain. Victim in Pain is where I brought lyrically, I brought musically, I brought everything to the table, you know, and because when I walked into it, all the songs were kind of there, but they were a little bit of a mess and not all together, you know. By the time we went to record it, we had a little bit something together.
Right. Well, I want to talk about Victim in Pain and all the classic albums and get to that stuff because it's so important to the culture here in New York and the band's history. Gonna just shout out to some of the people watching. We got Brazil again, and Argentina and Mexico and DC and Boston. People watching from all over. Thanks everybody for joining in. We got
thanks everyone.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so when you joined AF, did you guys want to be a professional band, or was it more like you were just doing it with your friends? It was an outlet. Like, at what point were you like, maybe we could make some money doing this? Was that ever like a thing back then?
That's a good one. No, it was never a thing. We were doing it because we were friends. We wanted to say something. Wanted to be, you know, everybody was contributing somehow, some way into the scene, whether you were a band or you were a fanzine like Guillotine. They did a lot for the scene, and everybody had their way. Of art was also a big thing, you know, like designing flyers and stuff. But everybody had a way of contributing something towards it, and for some reason, almost everybody that was part of the scene was in some band somehow, or multiple bands. I played in so many bands. Even while I was in Agnostic Front, I still played with a bunch of bands, you know, because we were always helping each other out. But if back then, I didn't even know New York State existed, to be honest with you. Wow. I was so caught up in this little like area that I didn't know New York was so big. I only knew it was big when I finally hit the road. I didn't know how big the country was. Right. Like, you know, you just don't know. Nothing's in perspective. Plus, we're ignorant kids. You know, we're crazy. We're getting drunk every night. We're doing whatever the hell we want. You don't know your world's beyond your neighborhood. That's it. That's all you know. But we were getting asked to play shows, which was cool. And I didn't think of anything success-wise till like when Victim in Pain actually came out. That was a big thing. That was a big thing for New York hardcore. Prior to that, everybody always had 7 inches. Kraut, of course. Right. Kraut's LP is phenomenal, one of my favorite. And then Victim in Pain has a different twist of what was going on in New York, you know. It
was really hardcore because Kraut had like a punk rock vibe, and even though Victim in Pain had some like punk in there, it was different. It was different than like the punk stuff happening in New York at the time.
Yeah, but to me, it was always been a punk record, you know, like it became hardcore punk and then hardcore whatever. But you know, we were a bunch of punk kids and doing what we're doing. But Victim in Pain really put us and New York hard on the map. That's when I started seeing a lot of people coming to shows, and that's when I started seeing like, wow, we played this one show. I finally got the flyer for the show. I've been looking forever. My friend Martin from in Chicago, hooked me up with it. It was a show, a monumental show. I think I talk about it in my book, where it's Crowd Agnostic Front and Channel 3 at the Rock Hotel. That was the first time. That was 1984. That was January of 1984, and that's when I realized, wow, you know, this is awesome. We could really do stuff. People really people are really like getting this now, you know. And it was
Right.
cool. We didn't even record Victim of Pain yet. And then when Victim of
Yeah.
Pain dropped, then all of a sudden we start playing CBs and places packed. Like people really gravitate to that record. People really loved it.
How did you get the record out? You know, you recorded with Don Fury, right?
Yeah, recorded with Don Fury. It was released on Rat Cage Records, which Rat Cage was doing a lot of cool New York bands back then. They did the Beastie Boys, they did Young and the Useless. A Virus came out about the same time Weir came out. They were also doing a bunch of European stuff. They had Raw Power. Who else? They had Neos from California.
Wow.
They had a really nice roster. And Dave always liked the band. He had bought a bunch of Victim of Pain off of us and sold them in the store, Rat Cage Records. And he was a really big part of putting together Victim of Pain art-wise. A lot of the visual parts of it comes from Dave from Rat Cage, because originally the cover to Victim of Pain was just a photo of me on top of the crowd of CBGBs. And when Dave got everything, he was like, wow, this is incredible. Loved it. Loved the recording. And he's like, I want to work with these images and this, and he showed me this World War II book. We picked the stuff out together, which is incredible. Dave also was a guy who needs to be credited for the famous Bad Brains logo, the lightning hitting the Capitol building.
Oh, okay, there you go, which has been used so much.
Yeah, Dave Parsons designed that. He used to be a huge part of the scene, did a lot of art, and had a Rat Cage Records, the record store, and then the label. But a lot of the stuff what I found out was it was actually being released. It was released. It was all backed up by John Loder in the UK. John Loder did all the Crash records and all the punk records, and he wanted to do our record through Rat Cage. So they had a partnership, but it only came out on Rat Cage Records, but all made in UK.
I could talk about Victim in Pain and listen to that all day long. It's such a special record. Before we move on to other parts of your history, did you know when you were, like, how long did it take to make Victim in Pain in total?
Oh, everything was done live.
Really? In the vocals and everything?
Well, the vocals, the band, we did everything live, right? And in the vocals, we were all separated. Everything was done live. The only thing, there was one song I came back and Vinny did the lead and power afterwards. And I came back and did a song that didn't have vocals, and I came back and did it. Other than that, we did it all live. Dave Jones is in the room doing his drums. Vinny was playing his guitar, his mic. I remember 3 mics or 3 that Don Fury used to get the different depths. And the bass was hooked up upstairs in his apartment. You could hear it, and Kabula was playing it. And I was right next to him as he's recording in the little control room doing the vocals.
Wow. How did you find Don Fury?
Don Fury, wow. Don Fury's got history, man. Don Fury just found us, basically. He used to come to all the shows, and he was one day walking by Greg Gildersleeve or something like that. We were playing. I think we were playing with GBH or something like that, and he came inside, and he's like, and he saw how people were gravitating to us. He goes, "I want to record you guys," because we used to go do like a rehearsal, like real 2-track rehearsals. You know, just go there, do a two-track rehearsal. But he didn't know like how the band was actually doing, and when he saw us, he's like, "I really want to do it." And then then we did United Blood. Then when it was time to do Victim Pain, he goes, he wanted to get him to do more stuff than your 4-track, which is the United Blood. So he wanted to get a 16-track machine because he wanted to record his band called Balls too. And part of it is we do a benefit show at CBGB's, which we did, and I got the actual audio from the board from that show. It's a full benefit show, and I have the audio, and then I have the flyer, and then we went and then we recorded with the money we got from that, took the 16-track machine down the staircase, and Don Fury set it up. I think we did Victim. He had it for like 2 weeks. He had the machine for 2 weeks. And I think we did Victim in Pain like 3 or 4 days, and he did everything else is balls.
Unbelievable. I'm gonna move on a little bit because we're gonna get kicked off at 9 o'clock. The Instagram kicks you off. I have so many more questions for you. I'm just so fascinated by the early days and all that. When we'll talk about cause for alarm in a second, but uh, going back to the squats, how would you even go about finding a squat? How'd you find your first squat?
There was a million squats, man. You have to understand, like you have to understand New York City that time, that place. Like I said, it was all most of everything was empty because it was just shooting galleries. It was empty buildings. You walk in there. I remember the last squat we had, which was 10th Street squat. There was no floors. It was all families in it. We walked in, no floors. You looked from the first floor straight up through the roof, no floors. And because I'm always been handy, I've always done construction, I do electrical, I do everything. We just got a team of guys and we started doing things and building a floor, then building the apartments and getting electric. We pirated electric from the city, never paid for it. I don't want to talk about it, I want this bill. Buildings are free electric. And then we just little by little kept going. And it was not hard to do. You just got to make sure you have to be careful. You don't know who else is in there. We were living amongst criminals,
In the same room, like in a big room together?
Well, you go into one apartment and you would check it out and you could claim it. And then all of a sudden we'll have like 4 or 5 of us there. We always had dogs, and we'll always protect it. But we could have one big squat and in it maybe there was like 15, 20 punks and then regular people, like people living in buildings, you know what I mean? And who knows what they were, criminals of some sort. We didn't ask, nobody asked,
Right. How hard was it to get from point A to point B without encountering issues and having a fight basically to get through? What I'm saying?
It was tough. People didn't understand us at first. I think the hardest thing was I remember working the A7 door, opening the door, and a knife coming in, boom, closing the door. Back then, and the crazy thing is I'm Hispanic, so I was like one of the only person, me and I remember who else, from Heart Attack, the drummer, God, I can't remember his name right now. I'm so horrible. I'm so sorry.
Is that Jesse's band, Jesse Malin?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, forget it. We were like the only people that spoke Spanish, so we'd have to like try to deal with the Latinos, because they didn't understand where all these crazy shows going on. They didn't want the riffraff because they want to try to sell their drugs. That's kind of what happened with Mike Ness, which what happened in my book.
Right, you guys had some
I'm
beef with
outside
Mike.
trying to clear up the Latinos from wanting to kill and come in, the gangs, real gangs, because they didn't understand what's going on and just destroy everything. And here comes Mike Ness through a bottle at where we were trying to diffuse what could possibly be a horrible situation. But we got to live it. You get it? He was just on tour. And he was going to move on. It was another state of mind. He was in another state of mind. Things are different. He's not the same person as he was back then. Neither am I. But that's how it was. There were Latin gangs. There were gangs. There were gangs. It was like the Warriors. It really existed. And then we were our own entity of it. We were the Lower East Side crew. We watched for each other like a normal gang would do. We cared for each other.
Did you eventually earn enough respect and recognition back then so like they would see you and leave you alone? And
absolutely, it's all about once they know who you are and they see you coming and going and there's no problem going on. It's just respect. They know you just like trying to make it through.
Right. It's just those guys. There they are again.
Yeah, now, they are.
So tell me about A7 a little bit, and then let's talk about Agnostic Front again. Who started A7? How did you get into that place in the first place? Like, how did you end up doing shows there, and was it legal?
I don't know. I don't think it was legal. The A7 was run by a guy named Dave, and he did. He most of the nights at the A7 Club were reggae nights. A lot of reggae, and he did his punk and he did his hardcore nights too. And it was an after-hours show. It didn't really open its doors till like midnight, sometimes 1. We wouldn't play till like the first band would go on at 11:30, 12:30, and we were there till 5, 6 in the morning. And we would come out, go to Leschko's across the street and eat. And that was every night, And even when there wasn't any shows, we hung out at the front of A7 with our boom boxes, and every night, whatever, till 5 in the morning to go eat breakfast, 6 in the morning, and go to sleep.
And the cops never came or bother you guys?
No, the cops didn't. They never bothered us, man. It's just weird. They were like, I remember sending my little brother Freddie. Now Freddie was at that time maybe 7 years old, to the corner store to go get us a 40. Could you imagine? And we went to the corner store. He came out with a 40, and we were across the street drinking in the park. Freddie, go get us some 40s. That's how it was. It was very like, everybody knew who was with who. And nobody, nobody cared. And,
well, it's like then, if they mess with Freddie, they know that's your brother.
Yeah, well, they would. I mean, no one's gonna mess with Freddie because we're all looking out for each other. Plus, we're telling him to go across the street, but we're literally across the street. We could see him going in the store and coming out. You know what I mean?
Right. I
stuff
understand.
like that. And it wasn't until the Lower East Side started getting gentrified that we started having issues. Like even the cops that would come around. I mean, look. I mean, there was everything. There was all kinds of stuff going on, but they really were after more like shutting down Operation Pressure Point, which was a big shutdown back then. I just remember in the Lower East Side of all the drug dealers. They were trying to re-gentrify it. We didn't know that.
Right.
You know? Of course, you know.
Let me just tell everybody real quick who's watching. We got a lot of people coming in. You're watching Roger Miret from Agnostic Front. And if you're just tuning in now and you missed the first part of this interview, as soon as we're done, you're going to be able to watch it from the beginning right here on the St. Vitus Bar Instagram TV. And eventually it will be on my YouTube channel if you look me up, Christopher Enriquez. Hey, Roger, if we I know you got some stuff to do. If we reach the 1 hour mark, can we start over again and go a little bit longer just to get to some more questions?
What time is your thing? Yeah, we have another thing happening here at 6. That's all.
No worries. We'll try to get through it.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
We'll try to get through it. Okay, let me move on. So when you made Cause for Alarm, there were some songs that were written or co-written by the late great Pete Steele of Carnivore and Typo Negative. How elaborate? How did he get involved? How did that happen?
You know, we used to we brought all of us together, bands like Carnivore, Whiplash, for example. We were all managed by the same person, Connie Barrett. And Connie Barrett was a regular at the not the ASM Club, at CBGB's and watching what was going on. And she was, you know, when I say managed, she was kind of like more handling stuff, you know what I mean? And we had just come back from our tour, 1985. We were getting ready to record Cause for Alarm. We asked Alex Connon from Cause for Alarm, the band, to join us. And we thought, wow, you know, I thought, you know, putting together Agnostic Front, Cause for Alarm, two, you know, for me at the time, I felt were great hardcore bands. Like, you know, if you listen to Cause for Alarm 7 Inch, I think it's phenomenal too.
Oh, it's awesome.
They had kind of separated. Kabula was already in our band. So I figured, wow, and now Alex, so we have half Agnostic Front and half of Cause for Alarm. And we had Jimmy Coletti was still playing drums. And then we started writing songs, and at that time there were more metal influence, largely to do with Alex's style. He was starting to write a little bit more metal stuff, and so was Kabula. And that's kind of where it's going. Jimmy Coletti just decided he didn't want to play that stuff. He left. He came back to join the band during the Something's Gotta Give era, when we went back to start doing that stuff. And he just disappeared one day, and then next thing you know, we had no drummer. So then that's when Connie said, why don't you use Louis from Carnivore? And we were like, okay. So we started using Louis because we would rehearse in the same place. Carnivore and Agnostic rehearsed in Brooklyn, in Carnivore's, Louis' backyard. I think it was Louis' backyard. It was a garage, and that's where we rehearsed that. You know, that's where we rehearsed for Cause for Alarm, and that's how it all came together. You know, we played shows together. There was a couple shows that were like to help CBGBs from closing. We did that with Carnivore. We started going back. You know, Carnivore started doing more hardcore. I guess we started doing a little bit more metal. But to get to the bottom line is how he got involved was I wasn't really feeling it. I'm not, like I said, I got into punk rock and hardcore, and I really wasn't feeling the metal stuff. You know what I mean? I just didn't know I didn't know how to approach it. There was a couple songs that were there, but they were like we bought them from from the tour. They kind of stayed the same. But I just didn't know what to do. And I kind of felt like, you know, I needed a break, and I left. Actually, I left the band for a moment. I left the band, and then for a moment there, Carl was going to sing too. Carl from the Iceman. I don't know what was going on, but Kabula, Alex, and those guys kept going, and then they asked Pete to write some stuff for the songs that keep going, and they did. They kept going. Now, right before they were getting ready to play a show, Vinny asked me to come back and play. He went to go see me, and I said, okay, I'll come back and do it. And then same week, 1 week before that is when I went back to the band, and that's when we recorded Cause for Alarm. I was unsure about what I was doing because it wasn't familiar to me. There was like words I didn't ever use, how to sing it. It was a different way. Everything was different. And I was sick too. So that whole recording to me was kind of messed up on my part. Those guys did a good job. Alex is a great guy, and Kabula, they all really worked really hard. But I came in like a week before and completely unprepared, not even know what I was doing. But then it grew on me. And when I play those songs live, I love them. You know, I wish I had that chance for it to grow on me then, and to do it my way, which is what I do now. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So it was just really weird, but that's how Pete came into the picture. That was your original question.
Yeah, I was just wondering, you know, how that even.
It was Pete and Lou from Carnivore.
Right.
Very came into the picture. So now it became Agnostic was a combination of two people from Agnostic, two people from Cause for Alarm, and two people from Carnivore.
And was it weird that's amazing, that history, because of where the bands went and how Typo Negative became who they were and what they mean to heavy music. Now, was it weird for Stigma to start playing that kind of crossover style, or what? Like,
you know, Stigma never had a damn problem with any of that.
It's just really a man of the people.
Stigma is Stigma. Stigma was at first, you know, he was the only guitar player. So he was at first, he's like, he didn't want another guitar player, but because it was Alex, he was, Alex is his friend. Like he was happy that Alex was the second guitar player. And if you A and B Cause for Alarm, Vinny's actually playing one. He's on one of the speakers, and Alex is on the other speaker. And Vinny stuck with it, man. I was the one that didn't stick with it, you know. And I wish I
was
would.
A crossover right there. You got one guy that's playing the punk shit, and the other guy going off a little bit.
And I came back, and I did the best I could, considering I was also sick doing that recording, which is crazy.
So crazy.
But it had to be done. It was crazy. You know? Everything was pressure, you know.
Did you feel like there was any backlash when you did the crossover from the early fans and the hardcore?
Of course, I remember playing the one show. I think one of the only shows that Alex played with us at CBGB's, because we played like 4 or 5 shows with us, and we played with Youth of Today, and we were playing Cause for Alarm songs. It was just about to come out. People were like, "What is this? What's going on?" Like they didn't even know how to approach it. It was so bizarre.
Right. Just
So
looking at
different than Victim in Pain, to like all of a sudden you're playing Growing Concern, we're playing The Eliminator, we're playing Public Sisters, we're playing Toxic Shock. They're like, what the fuck? You know, what is this? But eventually all those people dug it. It just
took interesting because all that, like Youth of Today, Gorilla Biscuits, that whole scene, the Youth Crew stuff. I mean, every interview they all talk about Victim in Pain, and that was their record. You know?
Yeah, well, Victim in Pain is, I get it. You know, Victim in Pain was a landmark record for what it is. But I mean, Youth of Today just took from Victim in Pain and just kept moving with it. So did like all those bands, Gorilla Biscuits, of course they had their own twist on it. But later on, if you hear some of the stuff, you can hear some of the influences from the Cause for Alarm too.
Yeah.
In those songs.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Judge, obviously. Stuff. When is that kind of why when AF came back in '98 with Something's Gotta Give, like you guys brought back the punk sound for a couple records, maybe just to be like, you know what, let's go back to where we came from?
Well, what happened with that was, we got Jimmy back in the band, and Jimmy could play what he plays really well, which is everything up to Victim in Pain. He did a great job. He played of course, all the stuff that's those Epitaph year stuff.
Yeah,
that's his style. Jimmy Coletti, that's his style. You know, if you give him anything that's more metallic, he can't do it, or he just doesn't want to. It's just not his thing. but you know, like some people are really good at certain things. You know what I mean? But when we got back together with me, Vinny, Jimmy, and Kabula, that was the actual touring lineup and everything for Victim of Pain. That was the lineup till 1985, and we did what we did best. That was what we did best. You know, we weren't trying to change anything, do anything different. And at the same time, there was so much of the new flavor school stuff that it was good to refresh ourselves and go back, throw back a little bit. And that's kind of what we wanted to do. We wanted to like stand out again. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, yeah. It was cool to see. I remember when you got back together, it was such a big deal in New York, and people were pumped because it was like the old sound. I love all the records, Liberty and Justice, One Voice. Now, you put out another voice. That was when you kind of went back to that heavy sound with the crossover. Is there any? You've described One Voice as like a concept record. You were incarcerated. You compared it to like your version of Pink Floyd's The Wall. I listen to it differently now and think about that, and it's a cool experience. Is there like a lyrical continuity on Another Voice, like part 2 in a way?
No, not in the same way as One Voice is truly a record like that, like everything you just described, because from front to back, it's about me getting caught in my nonsense, whatever was going on, and going through the system and getting back out. It's like a flow. Like the whole album is really one thing. And I tried to repeat that with the new record, not with Another Voice. With our last record we just released, Get Loud.
Oh, it's great. I
tried to repeat a theme. I really want to. And that theme in Get Loud, a lot of it is off the book. Like a lot of those songs are off the book. The theme was going to be following my book. But so much shit happens that you need to, like, I need to talk about it, and it switched it up. But the thing with One Voice was it was such a pivotal point in my life, and I had written so much stuff while I was incarcerated. I wanted to do it this way. Didn't even think about it was going to be a theme record. It was just everything I had. It was all reference to exactly that, even up to the cover. Everything was just like, I don't even know how it happened. And that was also something fresh, something different, something new. And when that record came out, people didn't understand how to take it. That record got more popular when we stopped playing.
Right.
Reason. But if you listen to that record, and if you take my vocals out and you pull some of those leads that Matt Henderson did, it's basically the beginning of Madball. It's that.
Oh yeah,
Matt Henderson. Yeah, you could just put Freddie's vocals in there and just remove the leads, and it's the introduction to the new school hardcore.
To set it off, yeah. And I'm sorry, Will Shepler on drums and Vinny Stigma on guitar. Right, it set it off basically.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's not that obviously they've gone and done their own things, of course.
Yeah.
But that was what I'm getting at, is that was the introduction to that kind of style of music.
Absolutely. We got 10 more minutes, and I know you got stuff to do. We got a comment that kind of brings something up I wanted to talk about briefly. This is from Sisters of Mercy. He went to an Agnostic Front show in Texas, and 70% of the fans were neo-Nazis. Is that true? So I'm sure that you were faced with a lot of that kind of, there was a lot of scrutiny. How weird must have that been for you? You have like Nazi skinheads coming out and people mistaking you for one, and you're Hispanic. Talk a little bit about the battles and weird things you had to go through with white supremacists and Nazis, and all just the back and forth, you know?
Well, you know what, like we go to a place, we go to play. We never know who's gonna come. I mean, lyrically, what we stand for. You know what we talk about. We talk about united, strong, blacks and white, punks and skins. We've said it 100 times, 1,000,000 times, 1,000,000,000,000 times. But people show up. They show up. Now, you know who's welcome. You know who's not welcome. But at the same time, why can't people themselves kind of handle the situation and make it not welcomable or whatever? You know what I mean? And it's just, I think, I don't know where that person, when that one was talking about. I think it didn't get really bad, like we know it to be bad, till maybe after the 90s, because I didn't think it was that bad. I was incarcerated 89 into 90. up to like through up even into the 80s, the 88s. I thought, like 88, I went away 89. I thought everything was kind of okay. I didn't think there was anything of a big of an issue. But in the 90s, like 91, 90, 91, 92 is when things were like, okay, now you have to see really what's going on. And we're going out there to play a show. We still talk about what we talk about. We still talk about United Strong. We still doing our thing. We're getting our message across. But there's only so much we could do where people got to do some work themselves,
Yeah, no, you're right. And that should be a thing that hardcore people in the hardcore community should even realize in the first place. Stand up for what you believe in and fucking do something about it, Absolutely. Now, okay, we've been talking a lot about AF. Let's wrap that up, and then I got a couple of last questions for you. But how many more records do you think you and Vinny have in you? You guys are still going. Do you still feel that drive? I mean, there's a lot of social unrest and shit going on in the world.
I mean, just you just said that yourself. All the social unrest and shit. Look, Agnostic Front's always been a band to speak about oppression, overcoming oppression. What we're seeing today is nothing new to the underground subculture. If you've been a part of this underground subculture, what you've seen, the uprising and all the craziness you've been seeing it your whole life. The difference today is that everybody's got a camera, right?
Yes.
All this stuff has existed. It didn't just happen last year or 2 years ago. It's always been there, but now everybody's getting caught because now there's cameras and now you could see everything. You could see everything. When back then everything was word for word. There was no camera, no phone, or you know what I mean? And there's so much to talk about, so much to do. I mean, we just got to get through this year to begin with. We just released our record Get Loud, which I think is a phenomenal record. I couldn't wait to tour.
Oh, it's great. I was at the record release show, and when you guys filmed the video for that, for the single, that was great.
Exactly. And then a lot of the stuff we talk about, what we say, falls on deaf ears. It really bothers me because a lot of the stuff that we're experiencing today, if you go back just about 7 months ago, we dropped a song called Conquer and Divide. Just go back, look at that video. And you're like, shit. You could go back and look at videos and we're talking about exactly what's happening today. We've been talking about for years and years and years.
Absolutely.
It's a little frustrating that, sometimes, like, I don't know why people, it just falls on deaf ears, but hey, it's a start, it's a way, whatever. But we definitely have a lot to say. We want a lot to, there's a lot. How could you not have a lot to say? But right now, my main focus right now, to be honest with you, is just I'm lucky enough. The pandemic, all the stuff we'll be going through has kept me home for a while, longer than normally expected. And I'm lucky enough to be here with my wife, my kids, and have that valuable time, which I don't have. Mm-hmm. There's a little stir crazy going on. I won't lie. From myself, from my family, how long could you be locked up? Hey, I've been locked up longer. You know that. But,
yeah.
But, I can't wait to go out and hit the stages. I can't wait to see my friends worldwide. I can't wait to go to Argentina, Mexico.
Yeah, we got Buenos Aires,
South America, Europe. I want to go everywhere, I just hope we can. I hope this comes, we need music. We need this. We need this communication. This is what brought us all together, And if this gets pulled away from us, how we're going to keep it together, But we have ways. What you're doing today is a way. You're like, it's like when we had fanzines and stuff back then. You're bringing people together for a little conversation, for 1 hour of just contact, of some sort. This is important.
That means a lot to me, Roger. You have no idea. As a New York person and someone that came up in the scene, it means a lot to me. Now we got 3 minutes left, and I ask a lot of people this question at the end about favorite records. And I know that sometimes you have a hard time with this, but if you can try to come up with this quickly, top 5 New York hardcore albums, go.
Whoa, can I put my own? I think not because I'm in a band, but I think Victim of Pain is, I've always considered a masterpiece, and not being egotistic or anything crazy, but that record front to back is just like, wow. Even when I listen to it, I'm like, I can't believe I did that. Okay, albums or
Al-
singles? Albums.
albums.
Crowd. I got to give Crowd for sure. Um, Sick of It All. Madball. Um, Youth of Today.
Okay, that's fine. That's
Gorilla
fine.
Biscuits came out a little bit later. There's a lot of great. There's too many.
It's too many. It's too many. We got the countdown that you can't see telling me I have 1 minute left, but I just want to thank you so much, and we can't for everything, not just for doing this, but for the culture that you laid here in New York for places like St. Vitus, and Vinny came and celebrated his birthday here, and
I was there.
Yeah.
It's in a movie.
Yeah, it's in the movie. We all got excited. I was with the other owners, and we were watching, and we were like, holy shit, that's fucking great. In the basement where he's getting his mohawk and everything. So on behalf of St. Vitus and on behalf of myself and the entire scene here in New York, from my generation and the younger people, just want to say thank you to you and Vinny for giving us something to do. Really appreciate that.
Hey, man, thank you for your time, of course, and thank you for having me on this. Chris, you rule, bro. Thank you very much.
Peace out, my friend. Stay safe.
You too, brother. Be good.
Okay, bye. Thanks, everybody. Man, that was fucking awesome. I'm going to go listen to Victim in Pain now for the next 24 hours because that album fucking rules. If you missed the interview, it'll be back up here on the St. Vitus IGTV and eventually on my YouTube channel. Look me up, Christopher Enriquez, YouTube. Peace out, motherfuckers. Bye.